The 2021 Formula 1 season is finally here, which means the level of anxiety among the 10 teams is probably at an all-time high. Optimism and excitement fades quite quickly when the cars hit the track and reality sets in, especially for those who have missed their targets or been outgunned by the opposition. Some fears will prove unfounded, but others will be realised, and they might just set the tone for the entire year. Make sure you're subscribed to the race to see how each team's story unfolds as the season develops, and maybe make a note of this video as a point of reference as well, because we're going to be looking at each team's biggest worry as the 2021 season begins. After pre-season testing, George Russell revealed that the Williams FW43B was very wind sensitive. This was the result of a decision to focus on peak downforce at the expense of aerodynamic robustness. The hope is that on its best weekends in steady state conditions, the car will be good enough for top 10 finishes, at the expense of some bad weekends. Given the conditions in Bahrain were very gusty, even once the sandstorms had vanished, this did bring out the worst in the car. Russell believes the car is good when things are more neutral, but we've yet to see that confirmed. Williams managed just 4 points finishes in the previous 3 seasons, so if it can have a handful of strong weekends when it's in Q2 and picking up points, that could be enough to lift it off last place in the World Championship. But if those peaks aren't high enough, it could be a long hard season for Russell and teammate Nicholas Latifi. In its 5 seasons in Formula 1, Haas has always been a point-scoring operation, and never had the embarrassment of finishing last in the Constructors' Championship. But given it's effectively sacrificed 2021 to focus on development of next year's car for new technical regulations, a pointless year is possible. Pre-season testing suggests the Haas VF21 is the slowest car by some margin, and the emphasis is on building the experience of all rookie driver pairing Mick Schumacher and Nikita Mazepin. With as many as 23 races to score points in, should the race team extract the most from the package regularly, there is the hope of picking up some top 10 finishes, but it's going to be reliant on attrition to do so. The Alfa Romeo C41 was a regular in the top 6 during pre-season testing. Although that's misleading, there are signs that the car might be a little stronger than last year's. The hope is it can break free of the Class C group of teams and threaten the back of the midfield more often. The question is whether its driver lineup is strong enough. The vastly experienced Kimi Raikkonen still gives outstanding feedback and executes races well, but he lacks the edge of pace that he once had and that many drivers in this part of the grid still have. Alongside him, Antonio Giovinazzi's drive was saved by Alfa Romeo's desire for an Italian in the car. At his best, Giovinazzi can be superb, but he's far too inconsistent and needs to string together more good weekends, not to mention avoid crashing out at Spa for a 3rd consecutive year. If the Alfa is improved, the drivers will be the difference between a relatively strong or underwhelming season. The AlphaTauri AT02 was one of the standout midfield cars during testing, particularly in terms of how well balanced it looked on track. Given Pierre Gasly's qualities are well known, the team's hope of a strong Constructors' Championship finish could depend on rookie Yuki Tsunoda's contribution. Last year, AlphaTauri had a car capable of beating Ferrari to 6th in the Constructors' Championship, but it didn't do so. This was partly down to second driver Daniel Kvyat only contributing 32 points compared to Gasly's 75. AlphaTauri will hope for more from Tsunoda, the 20-year-old Formula 2 graduate who looked good in testing and has the potential to hit the ground running. But given how tight the midfield is, he's going to need to learn fast to score at the required rate. Ferrari's expectations for its revised aerodynamics, rear suspension and power unit seem to have been met. The team is happy with its correlation work, so that suggests it has hit its targets. But there are suspicions the new package doesn't seem to be able to lift it out of the midfield. Ferrari was never going to eliminate the massive deficit that emerged in 2020, but there was an expectation it would rise to 3rd place. Testing's only testing, but there's an air of uncertainty. If Ferrari hasn't underachieved with its 2021 upgrades, then it might not have aimed high enough in the first place. Given Ferrari wants to switch development focus to the 2022 car as soon as possible, having to address an underperforming SF21 would be an obvious frustration. Fernando Alonso heads into his comeback season knowing that the Alpine A521 won't allow him to fight for victories on merit, but he'll be expecting confirmation that the rebranded Renault team is on an upward curve. That means he will at least want to do what Daniel Ricciardo did last season, picking up a few podiums and consistent points finishes. Given how congested the midfield group is, it will only take a few attempts to make the difference between a strong weekend and a bad one. But if Alonso can consistently reach Q3 and see the team improving the car, then he should be satisfied. If not, Alonso is well known as a driver who is justifiably not shy about coming forward when it comes to the shortcomings of a team. Given the unusual team structure without a full-time team principal, it could become very lively behind the scenes should that be the case. Aston Martin is underprepared. As a team, it recorded the second lowest lap count at testing, while star signing Sebastian Vettel had fewer laps than any of the regular drivers. There were frustrating reliability problems in the form of gearbox, turbocharger and electrical issues, but Vettel made it clear the team couldn't just blame that on engine and gearbox supplier Mercedes. Reduced track time would have also given the team less opportunity to understand its revised AMR21, which has a new rear-end architecture, having switched to the 2020 spec Mercedes gearbox and suspension. It may be that both team and star driver can swiftly iron out any kinks, get on top of the mechanical issues and master the new car. But given how intense the midfield fight is expected to be this season, any lost ground early on could be very costly. McLaren is the only team that has switched engines in 2021 from Renault to Mercedes and has had to make a lot of revisions to the rear of the car to facilitate that change. It's not easy to do that at a time where teams were required to carry over most of their mechanical components for cost-saving reasons. So McLaren was given permission to make any change necessary to facilitate the new engine, but it had to sacrifice its development tokens to do that. That means no other performance-focused upgrades have been permitted, while its rivals have adapted fundamental items like the chassis, gearbox, suspension or nose. McLaren had to prove to the FIA that it did nothing more than what was required to house the new power unit. Sure, aerodynamic development is free and the Mercedes switch should yield performance on its own, but McLaren was frustrated to lose its development tokens. It will hope the restricted mechanical work for the MCL 35M is not a defining factor in its quest to finish best of the rest again in 2021. The optimism of a Red Bull title challenge is impossible to ignore, despite the team's best efforts to play down expectations. A strong pre-season testing performance with its sweet handle in RB16B and all-new Honda engine suggests that Red Bull's biggest issue in recent years, which is failing to hit the ground running, might finally be banished. Team boss Christian Horner has even admitted that it's starting the season with a good base instead of having to fix an inherent problem. And that, allied with Mercedes' rear instability issue, means Red Bull is in uncharted territory heading to a season opener in the V6 turbo hybrid era. It's having to convince people that Mercedes is wrong about who's ahead and keep expectations in check. Max Verstappen said Red Bull would be stupid to expect an easy fight and assume it's ahead based on testing. But with so much expected of its new car and engine, the team will be anxious to discover if its developments are enough or if it's just experienced a false dawn. World champion Lewis Hamilton had 2 spins in testing, one of which caused a red flag, while Valtteri Bottas called the car quite snappy and unforgiving. Mercedes ended the 3 days in Bahrain claiming it was behind Red Bull and confused over its lack of progress on lower fuel as it sought to understand its rear instability problem. The team also said that it will not find all the performance it's missing immediately or be ahead of Red Bull at the start of the season. But Mercedes has won the last 7 Drivers' and Constructors' Championships for a reason, and its supposed struggles have drawn comparisons to 2019 when the team was struggling in testing before a last-gasp breakthrough. We've explained in another video why the two situations are rather different, and Mercedes' ability to recover from difficulties is going to be tested. If it can't do that, it's advantage Red Bull, and even if it can, how much performance will it find? Starting on the back foot has to be Mercedes' biggest worry. That's our run through of each team's main concern as the season begins. But who do you think has the most to worry about? Let us know in the comments, give this video a like if you enjoyed it, and make sure you're subscribed to the race to keep up to date through the season.